You know what it is, everybody. Friday, December 2nd. Let's fade the noise and get that cash. It is Daily Bets with the Spittin Statistician. I am Dane Martinez, the Spittin Statistician, and with me today and every Friday is my main man, Benny Ricciardi, as we give you some props for week 13 of the NFL season. Benny, it's already week 13. Time flies when you're getting paid on prop bets, huh?
Yeah, it definitely does fly. Week 13, also known as the reemergence of Deshaun Watson after 2 years.
Yes, absolutely. I may talk about that a little bit later on in a prop. When I saw your props, it makes me think we may be on a similar narrative when it comes to the Cleveland Browns and Houston Texans game. And guys, I mean, I've known Benny for a long time. When we're on a similar narrative, it kind of makes sense to follow that. But remember, you definitely want to follow us here on FTN Daily Bet. Subscribe via the YouTube channel. Hit that like button to be sure. Also want to let you know we got a free trial going on. Check it out. 3-day free trial. Go to ftnbets.com/free and you can get that. Also, use the promo code SPEEDS. You can get 20%. Of course, that is if Benny's set that up for me already. We'll see about that. But use that promo code. Hit the like button. Let's get paid. I was telling everybody, first of all, Benny, the other thing people got to do, and we were talking about it off air, is you got to go to the prop shop. Okay, we're giving people props all the time. And literally, it happened last night on Thursday Night Football. We saw a range of about 4 yards in terms of Singletary's rushing prop. I told everybody go over the lowest number, and good thing because he just got over it by the hook. That's the value of the prop shop. Some people say, oh, it doesn't really matter. It's only 3 yards, or what's the difference between minus 110 and minus 125? But Benny, it's a big damn difference, especially if you're, trying to be sharp and if you're putting big money behind things.
Well, and even if you're not putting big money behind things, if you're somebody who bets all season long, right? Like you're going to have, let's say you make 5 bets a week. The season's about 20 weeks long. It's about 100 bets that you make there. Yeah. Whether or not you're profitable, you're probably only going to be profitable by maybe 4 to 10 games or so, right? Like nobody's really hitting 70% winners, at least not realistically. Right. Some people may have it in their bio.
You see it all
on social media, right? It might be in your bio. And you know what? You could get hot. Like you could go 7 for 10 and hit
over the span of a month.
Week.
That might happen. Sure.
Yeah, but over the course of the season, I mean, even if you're a good bettor, you're probably hitting like 55, 56%. And losing one of those ones like last night versus winning it, where if you had the 50 and a half, that's a W. If you had the 53 or the 54, that's an L. Those are the things that at the end of the season, you look back and you go, oh man, if I would have made 1 or 2 better decisions with a better number out there by looking at the prop shop, I would have went from, breaking even to making 4 units on a year or something like that. So, it definitely is a big deal. It definitely is something that I do. I mean, we were joking around before. Like I said, that is the one page on FTN Bets that I use more than any other page. I basically live on the prop shop all day because you find something, you're doing your research. Oh, I want it over here. I want to bet this guy to score a touchdown. I want to bet it here. If you're going to bet it anyway, you might as well get the best payout for it. So go and look, see what the best number is, see what the best payout is, and then you take it. You make the most money that way over the long term.
Absolutely. We're trying to inch it up the hill to be sure, and the prop shop helps you out. Also, Benny, I've got a trivia question for you as we go to week 13. So I want to give everybody the trivia question, and then I'll give you the entire episode to think about it before I get your official guesses on it. Okay, here it is. You see it on the bottom. There are 4 players in the NFL, Benny, that have over 500 receiving yards each of the last 9 seasons. Okay, so 500 isn't really that long, but to do it 9 years in a row shows some kind of consistent production. I'll let you know also, Benny, that when I say 9 years in a row, it also includes this year. So they've already gotten over 500 yards this year. And the other thing I'll give you one clue. Okay, the one clue I'll give you is that I purposefully wrote which 4 players have over 500 receiving yards. I did not, for example, write which 4 wide receivers have over 500 receiving yards. So we'll think about that all episode. I'll give you the answer. If you're following along here with FTN Bets, you can also, check us out, hit us up on Twitter. Let me know if you have the answer. I see Benny's already jotting down some notes, so we'll see if he gets it at the end of the episode. Benny, let's get into it. You've got 3 props here for week 13. I've got 2 I want to give out. You've got a little bit more. So let's lead with your first one. Where are we going to get some cash here?
You know what? Let's start with Jalen Waddle and the Miami Dolphins here.
Sure.
So I'm looking at Jalen Waddle's number here, and technically Jalen Waddle is a wide receiver too, right? Like he's, the second best wide receiver on his team. Tyreek Hill is the number one. I don't think people are going to really argue that. But one of the things I love about Miami is, we talk about this for DFS all the time, and it's good for sports betting to kind of understand this as well. It's a narrow funnel. And what we mean by a narrow funnel is they aren't the team that's using like that fourth wide receiver for 30% of the snaps and throwing him the ball 5 or 6 times. The ball goes to Tyreek Hill. The ball goes to Jalen Waddle. The ball gets handed to their running backs, which used to be Mostert. Now it's basically been Jeff Wilson lately. There's an occasional red zone target there for Mike Gesicki, but that's about it. Like, where the ball is going to go with these guys.
Right.
6 games in a row so far, Jalen Waddle has had 66 or more receiving yards, and his number is 66.5 today. 9 of the 11 games that they've played so far this season, Jalen Waddle has had at least 66 receiving yards. So this is something that happens not just more often than a coin flip. Like this 9 out of 11 times we're talking about here, like that's over 80% of the time this is something that happens. That number just seemed too low to me. And I get it. They're playing San Francisco, a team that everybody considers a very good defense. And they are a very good defense. I'm not saying they're not. But they're actually in the bottom half of the league this year for fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So they are still giving it up. Maybe it's because teams are throwing on them a little more. Maybe it's because teams aren't having as much success running the ball against them. So you're kind of forced to throw the ball here. But either way, I think people are kind of sleeping on the fact that Jalen Waddle's an absolute stud. I mean, the guy had 1,000 yards plus last year as a rookie. I think he had 100 and something catches. The end of the season, he was putting up some monster numbers. Shout out to him because he was the reason I went to the King of the Beach for DraftKings last year because I had him in a big game, and then I had him in another big game in a qualifier there. Unfortunately, he played like Sunday night or Monday night, I think, during the actual King of the Beach. Yeah, so I couldn't use him when I was there, but he's one of the guys that got me down there to Florida. So again, I mean, the guy gets a lot of, sees about 8 targets per game, makes over 5 catches per game, 66 yards. At least one of those is going to be a long one down the field, if not more, because he does that basically every game. So I really like Jalen Waddle over 66.5 yards. I think I took it on BetMGM at minus 115 was the best price in the prop shop.
All right, absolutely. Make sure you go to the prop shop. Listen, I called Jalen Waddle literally in fantasy this year, in season-long fantasy, a league winner because he was drafted as a wide receiver 2, maybe a high-end wide receiver 3, and he's top 10 in the league in terms of receiving yards. Everybody's on Tyreek Hill, but yes, Jalen Waddle has been doing his thing. It's also, Benny, I don't know if you know this, last week was Jalen Waddle's birthday as well. Okay, so, maybe we get the little penguin dance going on for him. I like what you say. The inverse, I use the term, again, in fantasy of the fantasy herd. And that's when you don't know who's going to get it on any given week, right? There's all these guys. And Miami is kind of the opposite of that. Like you said, really concentrated for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, to be sure. I like that. We're going over 66.5 receiving yards for Waddle. All right. My first one, Benny, and my theme is I am going to give props for the 2 quarterbacks I think will be talked about the most going into week 13. You already let the cat out of the bag on one of them, but the other one, Benny, it's our Jets. It's Mike White. Are you kidding me? I was in the building last week getting rained on, Benny, when Mike White went 22 of 28 for 315 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Chicago Bears. His prop number in terms of passing yards is 246.5. And I'm going over, Benny. I'm taking over that number. By the way, in the prop shop over at PointsBet, it's as high as 250.5. So you have that 4-yard margin there if you're going to play this. Now, here's my thing. We also got Michael Carter, who it looks like is going to be doubtful for this game. So we're talking about Zonovan Knight and Ty Johnson in the backfield for the Jets. I think this is going to be pass heavy on the arm of Mike White. This whole locker room loves Mike White, says that he basically gets the ball out when he's supposed to, throws, makes the read, processes the information, and gets it into the arms of playmakers, right? So I think that is actually going to be a good thing. It is going to be on his arm. The Jets are also dogs in this game. So potentially you get a negative game script, which leads to more passing. I mean, he had 315 yards in a game the Jets won by 3 touchdowns, Benny. You know what I mean? So when they would have been able to run it. And then I look at Minnesota, and Minnesota, they give up 276 yards per game via the pass, Benny. That is dead last in the NFL. And check out the last 5 of the last 6 weeks. Minnesota opponents. Are you ready for this? Mac Jones put up 382 against them on the air on Thanksgiving. Dak Prescott in that blowout where they were running the ball late because they were up by 30 points. He put up 276 on their average would be over this number. Josh Allen in that crazy game back and forth where he fumbled the snap on the one, he put up 330 against them. Kyler Murray in week 8 put up 326 against them. And you may be like, Dane, those are all quality starting quarterbacks. Mike White is kind of a backup. Well, in week 6 against the Miami Dolphins and Teddy Bridgewater put up 329 passing against this offense. So I think their normal number is 276 that they give up, 246. I think Mike White can do it. They're going to be relying on the pass game, not the run game. Give me the over 246.5 for Mike White, Benny.
That was absolutely the most fun Jets game I've been to in probably 5 or 6 years. It was like the whole crowd was electric. Everybody was in it. It was awesome. It was awesome. And honestly, the thing I love about Mike White is like he didn't do anything special.
He didn't have to.
He dropped back and he threw the ball to wide open wide receivers because the Jets do actually have some good skill players. Like the Garrett Wilson throw. And again, I have never been a Zach Wilson fan. And I've said this is part of my problem with him is he tries to make everything a highlight reel instead of just doing the easy thing. The easy thing is throwing the ball to your right. The one touchdown that Garrett Wilson had, caught the ball in the middle of the field, absolutely juked a guy out of his shoes.
Ran away from people.
And then just ran for 40 yards for a touchdown. Get these guys the ball. Let them do what they do. They're playmakers. They have some. So, yeah, I'm loving this, man. I like the over there on Mike White. So I'm going to go to another guy, a guy that a lot of people don't like. Well, actually, I shouldn't say a guy that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people don't like his quarterback this year. But Courtland Sutton has still been putting up some decent numbers so far this year. And that's going to be my next one here. Okay. I like over 4.5 receptions for Courtland Sutton. This number should be 5.5. That's what it should be. And it's starting to creep up a little bit. The best number I could find on it, Caesars, was minus 125. It's up to minus 135, minus 140 on some of the other books out there. But since their bye, which was 4 weeks ago, in the last 3 games that they played, this is a guy who's had at least 6 receptions in each one of those games there. Going up against the Baltimore Ravens team, that is a top 5 matchup for wide receivers in terms of fantasy points, passes down the field, catches. There's a whole bunch of stats that they're one of the worst in the league in right here. So it's a great matchup for him coming out. And like I said, this number should be 5.5 at minus 110. Instead, it's 4.5, minus 125. I would play it at 5.5 at minus 110 if you could find it there. I wouldn't play it juiced up at 5.5, but if you can get it at 4.5 under like 130, if you can get it at 5.5 at minus 110 or better, I'm really interested in Courtland Sutton over on his receptions again this week.
I like that as well, Benny. I'm a big believer in what Game Script does for some of these props, okay? And I just do not expect Denver to be able to hang with Baltimore in this game. So I think in the second half, you may get a little bit of underneath route, some garbage time production as well. So I like that. Courtland Sutton over 4.5 receptions. Make sure you shop around and find it at the best place. All right. So, Benny, I told you I'm going with 2 quarterback props. I gave you the Mike White, but to be certain, the number 1 prop or the number 1 quarterback that will be talked about this week in a revenge game, to be certain, is Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns going up against the Houston Texans. Now, all right, and regardless of whatever you think about the situation, the suspension, long enough, short enough, what he did, what he didn't do, I don't care about any of that. What I do know is that this is his first game playing with Cleveland. It takes time to build chemistry with Amari Cooper, with Donovan Peoples-Jones, with Njoku. So when I see the passing yard total at 242.5, I'm going under, Benny. I'm going under Deshaun Watson, 242.5. Here's the thing, right? I believe this number is going to eventually get publicly inflated also. I think all the money's going to come in on the over. People thinking, oh, Deshaun Watson has to get the Texans back and all that. I don't think so, okay? There's a term out there. I don't know if you've heard it. Do you know what Occam's razor is, Benny? What Occam's razor is basically don't get too cute. Don't overthink it. The most obvious thing is the most likely thing, okay? And the Houston Texans, they give up 168 yards per game on the ground. The worst run defense in the NFL. The Cleveland Browns have, I don't know, a pretty good running back named Nick Chubb that's got already 1,039 yards. That's 3rd most in the NFL, right? So I do think Cleveland will be able to run the ball against Houston. They don't have to try to be flashy. They just hand the ball to Nick Chubb and it'll work. They're also 7-point road favorites, Benny. So I think game script will help them in this one as well. Now, sure, Deshaun Watson may make some plays, some highlight reel scramble when he does what you think Zach Wilson does, but to better effect. But I don't think they're going to try and be sexy with this one. I think you just give the ball to Nick Chubb. He pounds the rock. You hop in, you hop out, and you get out of there with a W. That's why I like the Cleveland Browns in survivor and knockout pools if you're still in those. And I think Deshaun Watson is not going to have to throw. He hasn't had the reps or the chemistry with those guys, and they could do just fine giving the ball to Nick Chubb. So I'm on under 242.5 passing yards for Deshaun Watson, Benny. And it looks like with your final prop, you're on a similar narrative on how you think Cleveland will attack this game against the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, you basically stole 90% of my thunder there because everything I was about to say is exactly what you said. So yeah. I 100% agree with you. Houston's the worst run defense in the league. Cleveland has Nick Chubb. I mean, we don't got to go too much further than that into
Occam's razor, Benny.
Exactly.
Razor.
Don't make this harder than it has to be. The first couple weeks of the season, Nick Chubb was running all over the teams that they had. They should have started the season off 3-0, if not for our New York Jets with the one in, I think, 11 years.
The onside kick.
Yeah. With nobody's come back from like 13 points with less than a minute 30 in like 11 years worth of football games or something like that. So they should have started the season 3-0. But Dane, here's the thing. If you look a little deeper into those numbers as well, right? Yeah. You look at week 5, they've only had 3 wins since week 5. Week 5, that win that they had, I think it was the Chargers in week 5.
Mm-hmm.
Big game rushing for Nick Chubb. 2 touchdowns for Nick Chubb.
Yes.
Then the next game that they won was a couple weeks later.
Yes.
Big game rushing for Nick
the
Chubb.
Cincy and Tampa ones, the wins.
Yes, two rushing touchdowns in that one. Now, Tampa was the last game they played. He did not get in the end zone twice in that Tampa game. He only got in the end zone once in that game, but he had 26 carries, and I think it was 116 yards against what is a very good Tampa defense. So it's okay if you didn't get in the end zone twice against a good Tampa defense. As you mentioned, Houston is not Tampa's run defense. Right. Houston is the worst run defense in the league here. And again, you have a quarterback who hasn't played a game in 2 years right now to go along with what you were saying about the under there. The easiest way for them to win this football game is just to lean on Nick Chubb. Give Nick Chubb his 20, 25 carries if that's what it's going to take. Mix in a little Kareem Hunt if you want. I don't even know if you want to, let somebody else get a couple chances there, but pound the run, keep the ball on the ground, just keep picking up 3, 4, 5, 6 yards of carry, go straight down the field, get into the end zone. And like I said, when they actually win these football games, they're winning these football games with Nick Chubb scoring multiple touchdowns, getting 20 plus carries, racking up 100 plus yards. And again, this is the exact setup that they have here in this game. So my last play is Nick Chubb for 2 touchdowns, not 1, because 1 is like minus 190 or something like that. Not getting any value on him scoring a touchdown in this game. So we got to go for the 2 touchdowns. And Houston is the team that has given up more than 2 touchdowns on the ground to their opponents in 7 of the 11 games that they have played this year. 5 different running backs have scored 2 touchdowns against them by themselves. And the list, the Derrick Henry and the Josh Jacobs, and there's a couple good players on the list, but you also got guys like Khalil Herbert who's done it twice. I think Austin Eckler, who's a good running back, he got in the end zone, I think 3 or 4 times against them when they played. So, this is a team that has just been absolutely hemorrhaging touchdowns to running backs so far this year. I think this is a great spot for Nick Chubb. I like Nick Chubb to get in the end zone twice. FanDuel has it for plus 350. Here's how good of a play this is, or how likely this is for a 2 touchdown play. It's only plus 210 over on Caesars. There are solid wide receiver 2s and pretty much the tight end.
Just their one touchdown is like plus 270.
For one touchdown is plus 250, 270, 300. Right. Plus 210 is what Caesars has this at. FanDuel was the best price I could find. Plus 350 for 2 Nick Chubb touchdowns. I love that this week. It's going to be a big day for Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're really on the same page when it comes to this game. I saw the same thing. Like, Cleveland's won 2 of their last 6 games, and those were the 2 games where Nick Chubb gets over 90 yards. Those are the 2 games where Nick Chubb gets, like 20 carries or whatever. I do believe Cleveland will win this game, and then they will be able to kind of use Nick Chubb as the closer. So, to recap, in that game, maybe we put together a little same-game parlay, Benny.
Absolutely.
Nick Chubb in the end zone, the under on Deshaun passing yards, and Cleveland to win the game outright.
Hold on. Take Nick Chubb over whatever the rushing yardage thing is. I don't think it's 100. Take the alternate line of him like 110 rushing yards or something like that.
I like
then
it.
you could juice it up a little bit there with a plus money thing in there. I like that, though. I'll take that.
Yeah. We'll be all over that one. We'll see if it cashes and what kind of payout we can get. So in that game, Benny's on Nick Chubb to get into the end zone twice. I'm on Watson to go under his passing number when it comes to his first game in 2 years. And remember, Nick Chubb is the other option. Cortland Sutton to get 5 or more receptions. I like Mike White experience to continue for the Jets up in Minnesota against a bad pass defense. And then we also have Jalen Waddle getting at least 67 receiving yards. So, Benny, speaking of receiving yards, I had a trivia question for you at the top of the show. There are 4, and I use this word especially, players in the NFL who have 500 or more than 500 receiving yards each of the last 9 seasons. That's a long time, Benny, to have consistency there. Do you think you got it? Do you think you got 2 or 3 or all 4? How do we want to do this one? Do I give you 5 guesses?
So
to get
let's
4
see.
right,
Let's see how many I can do before we have to start doing some hints and stuff here. Right.
All right.
So first
enough.
off and foremost, the fact that you said players makes me think that there's a tight end or running back on that list. And Travis Kelce is probably the guy I'm going to start with. So Travis Kelce is 1.
Travis Kelce is correct. He is 1. After Travis Kelce, the answer is 3 receivers who have done this. Travis Kelce is the only non-wideout.
So let's see. I'm going to go with 9 seasons is not an insignificant amount of time either.
It's not.
So I'm thinking it's got to be guys like, maybe like a Stephon Diggs, a Keenan Allen, a Brandon Cooks. But Brandon Cooks was hurt that one year, so it wouldn't be Cooks. So let's go with Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen. Yeah, Jefferson hasn't been there long enough.
Certainly not 9 years for Jefferson.
Yeah, no. So I'm trying to think of somebody else who's been around. I know Diggs has been around a while. I know Adam Thielen. How'd I do?
So are these your 3 guesses?
Those are my other 3.
Diggs, Thielen, and
Keenan Allen.
Incorrect, my friend. 0 of those 3 are correct. I will say this, though. You mentioned Brandon Cooks, and he is one of the answers, okay? So
I know
Brandon
he missed
Cooks
it. Didn't he miss a year, though?
But I think if he missed, didn't play at any of the entire year.
Oh, so it doesn't count? All right.
I'll go back to it and check.
Oh, yeah, because he's had like 5 or 6,000 yard receiving seasons in a row. Yeah. That's why he was in my tip. All right, I like Brandon Cooks.
So Brandon Cooks, Travis Kelce, you got. There are 2 others. One of them would also have it if I said like double-digit touchdowns, I think, multiple years. Like, who is tried and true, a great touchdown getter at wide receiver? I think a severely underrated wide receiver who plays in the NFC South, Benny.
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans is correct.
All right. Mike Evans is going to be my next guess.
Mike Evans is correct. And for the last one, the hint I'll give you is I was surprised to see him on this list when I said that this year counts, because he missed a bunch of this year, but has already gone over 500 yards receiving.
So somebody that's been hurt this year, and it's not Keenan Allen. That was my guess. That can't be Mike Williams. He hasn't been there that long, right?
Make a guess, and then I'll give you the super hint.
Okay. All right, I'll say Mike Williams, even though I don't think that's right.
No, it is not Mike Williams. The super hint is you are close. The person did not miss a ton of games this year because of injury. He missed a ton of games this. There you go. DeAndre Hopkins.
I should have known that one.
He's already at 500 yards receiving. Dude has only played like 4 games or something. So there is your answer. Yes, Brandon.
And you want
Travis Kelce, Mike Evans, and D-Hop. Go ahead, Benny.
And you want the worst part about that? The one bad game he had a touchdown on the first drive and it did nothing for the rest of the game.
Else.
And I needed him to get 7 more points, and I would have had a qualifier for the King of the Beach right there. So,
well, you win some, you lose some, Benny. But the thing is, we win more than we lose here on FTN Bets. This is another episode of Daily Bets. Don't forget, get that free trial for 3 days. FTNBets.com/free. free. You can see all of our plays as well. FTN Bets, a great site. And of course, check out the prop shop on that Mike White, on the Deshaun Watson one. The juice goes from 110 in some places all the way to minus 135 on some places to go under the 242.5. So you remember, got to get the prop shop. I'll be back here on Monday with Taylor Mathis. We'll be breaking down props for Monday Night Football. Benny will be out there giving you all sorts of content all weekend long. You got to tell him, you got to follow us, and be sure to follow us on FTN Bets. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and be sure to fade the noise and get that cash as we go into week 13 of the NFL season. We'll see you guys on Monday. It's been another episode of Daily Bets. We out of here. Peace.